Hello, guys. Once again, welcome to Farming in Africa. And as usual, my name is Fred. Today, I found myself here in Missouri, and I'm visiting one of the things that you guys know we've been preaching about, innovating in the livestock industry in Africa. And if you guys are aware, early this year I talked about we pursuing AI and embryo transfer and learning more about that technology. Today I'm here with Shane, and I'll allow Shane to introduce himself to us.
So hello guys, I'm Shane Morgan. We run a reproductive company in Missouri, and we also are sheep and goat farmers ourselves, and we also have cattle as well. But yeah, Fred asked if he could come and visit, and we took him on a trip yesterday, and we kind of went through the whole process of AI and embryo transfer, firsthand, dove into it. And so we're here today to answer any questions or that Fred might have that after he's seen it all, maybe come back and reflect on it, and then we'll see if we can't give you guys some answers.
Yeah, you guys can put your questions at the comments too, and I will send all of them to him. And in his free time, maybe he can start answering it for us. But I'm going to do my best and ask all the questions. But before we go into it, can you tell us what your company does?
So my company we provide the services for people that want to proliferate, want to make more of a certain animal. So these girls behind us right here, we AI'd these girls to select sires or select bucks to try to make, these are bred for the show industry. And so to make show babies.
Okay.
But we do it in cattle. So we'll do AI. You can do this with frozen semen, with fresh semen. We do embryo transfer, where we flush the embryos out of what we call a donor animal, and then we transfer those into recipients or surrogates. And then we also do IVF as well.
Okay.
So we'll do.
Great. And as you guys know, this is an innovative idea and technology that I've been wishing for West Africa for a very long time. But to a layman who's watching us for the first time, maybe you're not even in the livestock industry, what is artificial insemination?
Artificial insemination is where we take semen from a sire that has desired characteristics that we want to bring into our herd.
Okay.
So in the United States, we started artificial insemination in probably the 40s and 50s.
Wow. Okay.
And the dairy industry is impacted greatly. I mean, almost all the dairy cows are AI now. The commercial guys, the commercial cattle farmers in the United States, they'll buy semen from, if they want, a Charolais bull to put on Angus cows.
Yeah.
Or if they want some heat tolerance, they'll buy a Brahman bull and put on their cows. And to get, so we take the semen from sires that we don't have. Yeah. We can't go buy. So if I run 1,000 cows, I'm going to need, 20 bulls. So rather than buying 20 bulls, I can buy that I can pay $5,000 for a piece. I can go buy $5,000 worth of semen and breed all the cows.
I see. So somebody watching will be like, do goats even have characteristics? What are we looking for in a sow that will even go for a semen? So can you break down? What are some of the features?
On goats, everybody has their own idea, and not everything works for everybody. And there's not one way that works for everybody. So some guys, the Kikos, they're trying to breed in the parasite resistance. And so that's a key point in certain parts of the world. The boar goats, were imported here in the United States, and it's become a big thing. And they're meat production, but they've also got into, a lot of the show industry as well. And then you have guys that, have novel breeds of, goats and sheep that are very rare, and so they want to proliferate those. And then we have the people, like these goats are more geared towards the show industry. So kids raise them and show them and compete around each other. So
I see. Yeah, I saw that in California once. I think around September there is a big show that happens up north. Great. So that's basically AI.
So you can buy genetics from places that you normally couldn't afford.
Yeah. And then now you bring it to your head, and then you inseminate. Okay. So what are some of the benefits? I know you touched on a few, but if somebody's watching and says, this is the first time me, hearing about this artificial insemination, Why should I go do artificial insemination as a farmer?
Um, and artificial insemination is not for everybody. So let's just start there. Like
Okay.
it's not. You don't. If you have goats, it's not like I have to go. Have artificial insemination done on my goats.
Okay.
Um, Artificial insemination is geared when you're trying to change a herd or change your characteristics or improve them. So that is, I would say, the key benefit is to be able to change in 2 generations or a generation something that would take, if you just picked, out of your goats every year the best one, in 1 generation or 2 even would be impacted greatly. You could change a herd drastically. And
Okay, so if you're looking to improve or change your head, that's when you go in for artificial insemination. What about the cost side?
the cost side, it always varies. It depends on the amount of it's all relative to where you're at. So some semen is very expensive. In the U.S., we can buy semen for $100 a straw. We can buy semen for $1,500 a straw.
Wow.
And so that's, in the U.S. we use half cc straws, so 0.5 cc's is, $1,000. So it can get expensive.
Okay.
And then the procedural cost anywhere from, people charge anywhere between $30 and $75 to do
it.
the artificial insemination. So
Okay, amazing. To most of us, yesterday, you saw how amazed and inspired and, speechless that I was. To most of us, this has been a theory. But having me being here and see you do it, not just with like the same breed, but even crossbreed, to me was one of the best days that I don't think I will ever forget. So how did you get into this? Maybe going a little bit back.
Oh, goodness, yeah. So going back, I've always been interested in wildlife, I guess, in animals. We grew up as row crop farmers. My grandparents farmed in the panhandle of Texas.
Yeah.
When I was in school, I actually went to Texas A&M, and actually when I was actually there, I changed my major the first day. And so I was actually going into ag development, and I actually changed it to wildlife and fisheries because I thought, I love wildlife, I love fisheries. Obviously, and so I was like, if I'm going to do it, I'm going to do something I'm passionate about. So I changed the major then. I did wildlife and fisheries, graduated there, and ended up working at, while I was in school, I was helping a farmer and a rancher start his operation. He had just moved there, and his daughter was in my class and asked if you knew anybody that could drive a tractor on the weekends. And I was like, I can drive a tractor. And so we ended up becoming really good friends and helping them, and they got into registered Angus cows. And so I learned how to AI, and so we were doing the AI on the cows, and the veterinarian that would come and do the embryo transfer and the fetal sexing and the flushing and everything kind of helped take me under her wing and kind of help guide me and do this. And then she said, I've got to go AI a bunch of deer one night. Would you like to come with me? And I was like, mixing both of these together, that's amazing. I never thought about that. So I started helping her do some of that, and she said, why don't you go back to school and, have you ever thought about doing reproduction? And I said, no, it never even crossed my mind. But so at that time I wanted to do deer was a big industry in the U.S. at that time, so I wanted to do embryo transfer in deer. That's what I wanted to do. I set my mind to it, and I was going back to school because there wasn't anybody hardly doing it.
I see.
So I went back to school, and I volunteered for everything I could do and learn everything I could learn, and got to work with some people that were very industry leading in that field, and it's just evolved to this.
And here we are.
And here we are. So.
No, that's interesting. To those of you, the young guys watching me and staying at home saying, I want to do this, but I don't have money. One thing I picked from Shan's case is start somewhere. Go help somebody out. Go work in somebody's farm, and build it from there. Don't sit at home and say, I don't have the capital. I'm waiting on the government. Fred, can you give me money to start my farm? Go help somebody and you build up.
Like my school, I got out of school debt-free, but I took off, it took me 5 years to finish my first degree, my wildlife and fisheries, but I took off every fall and went and worked for an outfitter. And so I took 1 semester off every year almost. But then I saved all that money, and then I paid for school for the rest of the year. And then I worked when I was at school, but that helped to gain all that knowledge, all the contacts. and then be able to,
Yeah, and you were gaining the experience as well, which sets you apart from everybody that you graduated.
any kind of experience you can gain, whether it's good or bad, it's experience. Like I learned as much as I have from good experiences as I have from bad experiences.
I can agree with you more. Thank you very much, and I hope you guys are inspired by this and will get out of your couches and start doing something as well. You talked about Embryo. I know we talked about AI, and you told us the collection of the semens and putting it into a female or a doe goat. Take us a step further to what embryo is and what is the difference between embryo and AI.
Yeah, so embryo transfer is where we actually take embryos from, say, these donors, rather than just AI and them and getting 1 to 3 babies this year. So we can take this doe if she's the one I like the very most. We can use artificial insemination. We can live cover her. We'll give her a series of hormone injections to make her grow and ovulate more than she naturally would. And then 6 days later on goats, 7 days later on cows, we'll go in there and we'll harvest all those embryos before they start getting too advanced to where we can't freeze them or manipulate them. We'll remove those embryos, and then we'll implant those into surrogates. So I can have her, and then I can have, my herd of Spanish goats that are out there. And so with her, like yesterday we had, one goat gave us 20 embryos, one goat gave us 17 embryos, one goat, you can take those and make almost a lifetime supply of animals 1 year.
So what would happen? So let me get this right. So you take a sperm or semen and you put it in a goat.
Correct.
And that goat ovulates.
Yeah. So
and
ovulates more than she would.
More than she will. And then develop more embryos. And we go in and pick those embryos.
Correct.
And we could get up to how many per goat?
Up to 50, 60.
Up to 50.
But that's, uncommon. The average, I would say, yesterday we averaged, on the ones we flushed yesterday, we averaged, I don't know, probably
14, 13,
yeah.
10?
Well, 10 on the ones, and there's 2 of them we didn't even flush.
Yeah.
So
The ones that actually flushed, it would have been 15 or 16.
15 or 16.
Yeah.
So somewhere between 10 and 15 is kind of a normal flush average on a goat.
Excellent. So then you take that out and you can give that 15 to 15 goats. Or do you give like 2 to
So
each?
usually we'll do it depends on what the owner wants and their plan going forward. But you can put 1 embryo into each surrogate or each recipient. You can put 2, and sometimes if the embryos are very low quality and we don't, we'll put 3. Or if we have so many embryos and we don't have enough recips, we'll put 3 in some of them.
Does the number of embryos you put in determine the number of kids the goats will have?
Yes.
Okay, so if you put 1,
so if you put 1, typically you're going to have 1 or 0.
Okay.
There is a chance, it's more common than people think, embryo splitting. So like the little goat that we looked at yesterday, that was my son's bottle baby, that was very friendly in the buck pasture. So we actually put 2 embryos into that goat and had 3 babies.
Oh wow.
So there's always a chance, I say it's about 1 in 100 that actually split on the recipients, that you'll get more than you put in. But sometimes when you put in 2, you can have 1 split and 1 not take, and you still get 2, and you never know.
Okay.
But
Okay.
it's more common than people think it is.
Yeah.
But typically,
It happens.
It happens. So.
Yeah. I hope you guys are not confused and you're following. We've moved from, AI, which is basically collecting semen from a buck and then putting it into a female and allowing that female to do its thing.
To carry her baby to term.
Yeah, and give birth.
Yeah.
And now we've moved from there to putting it in and then also bringing that female back, cutting it open, collecting the embryo that's fertilized egg, and now putting that into another female sharing it. Okay, at this stage.
So you can have, 10 to 15 babies from her, this year.
Yeah, but if you don't collect it, what happens? You only give
if you don't collect them, I don't know. Technically, there's some people that say that they'll self-regulate, and kill some of them off. I don't know. I think if you have 15 of them in there, I wouldn't recommend it. It would probably not be a good outcome.
Okay, so you take it. So I guess the biggest benefit is you're being efficient by being able to take the SS1 and spread it out to other does as well.
Yeah.
What are some of the benefits that comes with this?
It comes with that. So you can proliferate, the genetics you like the best. So rather than me buying semen and I pick the top, half of my herd in AI those, and then the top half of that herd, makes, some of those are gonna be good, some of those are gonna be bad, which it happens with embryo transfer too. But you can take the top 10% of my herd and proliferate that instead of the other way around. So it's kind of a numbers game. I can run 2 donors and 50 recips, and so all my 75% of my babies next year are going to be out of these 2.
Yeah.
Versus if I had 75 of these.
Yeah, because one thing we're trying to do in West Africa is to bring this kind of goats into West Africa, but they're so expensive. Freight costs, duties, purchasing, logistics, health certificate, and so on. So as a farmer, let's say I want about 50 of this to start my farm, but I can afford 50. Walk me through the plan. If I'm in Nigeria, I'm in Ghana, I can only afford 2 of these goats, which is the Boer goat, but I want 50 Boer goats. What should I do? Or what is the way?
The easiest way would be, if you're wanting the purebred Boer goat or something very similar, the easiest way would be embryo transfer. But you have to find a recipient or a surrogate that is
able to carry
that baby and have that baby, deliver that baby with, without complications. So you have to, identify a suitable surrogate would be number one, I guess. And then at that point, you could utilize embryo transfer and proliferate those genetics.
And do it. And then that recipient is going to give birth to a pure Boer goat for you.
Yep.
That's it, guys. It's
easy.
That's the end game. That's the journey. I think if we can achieve this in Ghana, in West Africa, I will go on retirement. Because you guys know we have so many of these West African dwarfs. But the question and the point he made is, are they going to be the right recipient? That's a multi-million question that whoever cracks it is a billionaire. But that's it. But if we can find the right recipient to get it, then guess what? We don't need to spend so much money bringing these guys into Ghana. We can start through Embryo. Okay.
Plus the import-export's
That's
easier.
exactly, right? So we've talked about the technical aspects. Let's talk about you as a farmer. Yesterday I saw your wife. Today I'm seeing the kids all farming. Tell us how the journey has been being a farmer.
It's busy. Running an embryo reproductive technologies company and farming, it doesn't really go hand in hand.
Yeah.
Because I traveled, like yesterday you saw, we drove, 14 hours and worked, 7 of those or something.
Yeah.
And so it's a lot of, the wife and kids make this thing run. Because when I'm on the road, they're the ones that have to go feed the cows. They're the ones that have to watch the babies. They're the ones that have to pull the goats. Like you saw my little boy come in this morning and had to carry the little baby that was having problems.
Yeah.
So they're the ones that have to watch him. But the farming is, it's not something you take lightly. It's not something you can do. There's hobby farmers, but then if you're trying to do it for real and trying to make money, it's a full-time job.
It's a full-time job. Yeah. Yesterday we were here. We were packing things into the truck, and your wife was carrying bales of hay. And I love that. We don't have that many, farm women. Most of them will do crop farming instead of livestock farming. But I think it's changing, and gradually we are getting there. So I think those of you watching us. Shane, as he said, we drove about 14 hours yesterday through how many states? 3 states?
4, I guess.
4
Kansas,
states?
Missouri, Illinois, into Indiana.
Gosh, man.
14 hours round trip, I guess. Maybe a little more, I guess, probably.
Yeah, and can we talk a little bit about the work that we did yesterday so that people can see what you actually do on a day-to-day basis?
So yesterday we did some embryo transfers. So the week before, I went up there and actually laparoscopically AI'd those does. And we used frozen semen on some of them, and we used fresh semen on some of them. The fresh semen was actually collected, I don't know where he got it from, maybe Texas. And it was collected fresh, it was cooled, and then it was shipped overnight to Indiana. And then we took the semen out, warmed it back up, and AI'd those with it the next day. So
Yeah.
And then we came in 6 days later and we actually harvested and collected those embryos.
Yeah.
And then we transferred them into recipients yesterday. And then we didn't have enough recipients, so we had to freeze, quite
Some
a few
of them.
embryos too.
Yeah. So we got more than we actually needed.
Yep.
Which is good. Always
It's a good problem to
blessing.
have.
Yeah,
so.
good problem to have. But the happiest moment was when they were given to the Spanish goats.
Yeah.
Like to me that was the aha moment for me. It was like if it was boa to boa, I would be like, yeah, this is natural crossing. But seeing it move from a boa to a Spanish goat, I was like, okay, this is like living the dream right here,
Yeah.
And I saw it. It's complicated. I couldn't wrap my head around the cutting, the suturing and all that. But that's amazing. You said the U.S. started doing this somewhere in the 60s?
The 40s was probably the
40s.
The late 40s on AI.
Yeah.
And then really I'd say the 60s,
70s.
70s was big time into the AI. And they really got to where they could really freeze that semen. And we were freezing stuff in ampules back then, little glass jars. And it's evolved a bunch since then. And so now everything's frozen in little plastic straws. Either half cc or quarter cc's.
Yeah. And when they started, what did they have? What was in the U.S.? It was just local breed cows.
It started in the cows.
Yeah.
People wanting to import, Charolais and different breeds. The dairy industry grabbed it and ran with it because they could, improve. They could buy, semen from the top producing bulls at the time and add the whole herd to it.
Yeah.
And so.
So even though it was decades ago, I'm not crazy starting this now.
Maybe a little bit. But.
No, I'm not crazy because you go to Ghana and you ask, what cow is that? What pig is that? What goat is that? And they are all like the very local one. We haven't connected to the global world, where you come to the US, you see the New Jersey, you see the Brahman, you see the Angus. Mm-hmm. You go to Europe, you see the same thing. Mm-hmm. You come to Africa, and we are limited to just what we started with like a long time ago. So what we are trying to do here is basically what US was doing in the 40s, right? So now I need to be speaking to somebody older than Tim, probably, to take me to the basis, into the past, and say, how did you guys do it? How were you able to confront all the challenges? But what was the key success?
Well, there was several factors. So when we improved the genetics, we also had to learn to improve the nutrition, which you've touched on in your other videos.
Yeah.
So you have to match the nutrition to the livestock as well.
I'm going to film Tim because he's talking now.
So I was old enough to remember when our cattle were small, like your cattle. A cow weighed 800 pounds.
Wow.
Now they weigh, and they maybe hit me at my waist, the cows did.
Yeah.
Now they'll weigh up to 1,500 pounds. But like he says, we brought in the livestock, but like you, we had the same logistical problems. Mm-hmm. How do we afford and physically transport this big animal?
Exactly.
So semen became available, and then embryos also became available. Yeah. And the first embryos were transplanted. I remember an article as a teenager how I got interested. They collected a cow, put the embryos in a rabbit, and then shipped the rabbit overseas.
Wow.
Took the embryos of the cattle out of the rabbit and put them into cattle. And that's the first I remember of embryo transplant, because they couldn't freeze them. Like semen, they couldn't freeze it for a long time.
Yeah.
Once they figured that out, then like Shane touched, we looked at what traits do we need? Do we need taller? Do we need thicker? Do we need stronger maternal traits? More milk? Do we need more fat in the milk? Do we need heat tolerance? What do we need? So you go identify the genetics that meet those qualities you're trying to achieve, and then that's how you can implement them or pick that up at a faster pace than the natural cycle would be. And then embryo transplant is just an even quicker step, because you, instead of having a crossbred or a hybrid, you can actually import 100% pure genetic animal, put it in yours, and then the offspring is still 100% that animal. So you can really proliferate that a lot quicker and cheaper because of the logistics and people who do what Shane does. It's an art almost, and people need to appreciate it. But I can remember back in the day, we were where you were. That's why when I come to visit you, I could relate, and I can help you skip some of the mistakes we made in America going forward. You know,
Yeah.
like if you bring a boar goat like you mentioned and put it on your pygmy goat, forget it. It's not going to work. You're going to have some real complications.
Yeah.
Because we did that in the 60s in America. When we brought in the bigger, better genetics and put them on our little cattle, it was a train wreck.
Yeah.
We couldn't get live babies.
Yeah.
The problems with birthing we couldn't manage them.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, it's interesting. But you can skip a lot of steps and get there a lot quicker. That's the nice thing about it.
Yeah.
Using the knowledge of people with experience and have the skills that Shane has, you can advance very quickly. But remember, you have to match that with the nutritional needs too. You know, it's not like I can drive a car, but it's like giving them an airplane. They might not get very far in the airplane, and it's probably going to be costly. So remember to balance all of the equation, not just focus on one point, but consider all of the factors that go into producing that type of animal.
All right, that was Tim behind the camera. A lot of knowledge there shared with us as well. Thank you very much, Tim. So I think we've summed it up from AI to Embryo. I think you guys have given me the hope that as back forward as we are, there is still, you've done it, and that means that we can also do it. It's going to take time. I might just lay the foundation and somebody else will come continue from there. But yeah, Shane and I are in touch. I think we're going to get him to Ghana very soon and run as many experiments as we can. And I was telling him yesterday, someday we will tell our story together on how big of a failure we were or how great of a success that we are when we see all those pygmy and West African goats, you know, grown and become big, all in the name that farmers can get better return on their investment, you know, because it doesn't make sense for a farmer to sell this goat for $1,000 and then you, a Ghanaian farmer, sells your pygmy goat for $50, putting in the same effort, the same time. And I think that is what motivates me. How do you get better return so that farmers start wearing better clothes and living a good life, you know, and not like the image or the perception we have when we look at a farmer. So let's help us training farmers. Any last word to people watching you?
No, not really. I mean, anything's possible, I guess. I mean, Fred told me his story about how he ended up where he is, and it's a pretty amazing story. I mean, where I ended up where I am, it's, if you try, if you have the drive to do it, that, you know, there's nothing that really can stand in your way.
Yeah, there is nothing.
You're gonna have good times and bad times, but as long as you have the persistence and the drive to do it, get her done.
Yeah, thank you very much, guys. There's nothing that's gonna stand in our way. Hopefully Shane will come very soon and you guys will start seeing some results. Obviously, I'm gonna show you guys throughout the whole step and the journey so that wherever I end, you guys can continue. And those of you who want to join us on this ride and make the mistakes with us, let us know as well, because together then we can achieve, you know, what we set out to do. Thank you so much for watching, and thank you, Sean. Thank you, Tim, for being behind the camera for most of the time. Thank you guys for watching as well, and we'll continue to bring you more knowledge in livestock farming and everything that we do. Thank you so much.